Hi, good morning. Good morning. Welcome everyone to our meeting of the Animal Care and Control Board. Welcome board members. We have a quorum this morning, but I am disappointed we don't have a full board attendance. I think it's crucial and important, and I will urge my fellow members to do everything they can to attend. It is tough at this time of year. There's still vacations going on. We have some family matters. There's unavoidable things, and our police representative actually just retired last week, so we're waiting for a new appointee as well. So anyway, without further ado, let's move into our meeting. And the first thing we need to do is approve the previous board meeting minutes, and we need a motion to do that. All in favor? Aye. The minutes are approved. Now, Risa, we look forward to hearing your operations report.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. It's good to see everyone. First day of school, I thought we'd have more people because I'm driving kids off for school and then you could attend. But anyway, thank you so much to volunteers, to our staff who are here. What I'm about to present is a summary of the things that we've been working on throughout the last fiscal year, these last few months. I'm here to report it, but the real work is happening by every single staff member. So thank you so much. And thank you so much to the volunteers. I see some New Hope partners here. So really, we could not be succeeding without everyone's help and support. So I'm just going to turn around so we can address the board. Let's just start off with the data. I'm going to report on the fiscal year data. Because at the last meeting, we were not finished with our fiscal year. As you can see, live intake is up considerably, 8%. What we're seeing driving that number is owner surrenders by 22% from the previous fiscal year. Every other category is remaining relatively flat. And if you see in the top right-hand corner, there are other animals aside from cats and dogs that we take in. But we focus on the cats and dogs because those are the animals that are available for adoption to the public and the animals that require a lot of work to place. The next chart is the outcomes for all of the animals. So this top left-hand number, the number of outcomes, 31,221. That includes owner-requested euthanasia. This number is different than what you saw for intakes because the intake number is never the same as the outcome number. There's always animals moving throughout the shelter. So in fiscal 14, you can see on the left-hand side our New Hope partners and department did an exceptional job. They took in about 1,700 or more animals were placed in New Hope, and that is a huge, huge number, and many, many hours of ACC New Hope staff. We have 9 people fully dedicated to placing animals with New Hope. We have 250 New Hope partners. We've added 32 in fiscal 14, and we know that New Hope will just continue to grow. Public adoption side, we did better than last fiscal year by more than 800 animals. And it's up about 15.5% from the last fiscal year, which is good, but it has to be better. And we will focus in the slides to come, I'll show you where we're focusing on how to drive public adoptions to even greater success. But from the last fiscal year, it was up by over 15%. And then the other categories, return to owner, return to colony, owner requested euthanasia, And at the very bottom, you see euthanasia was 5,095 animals. Still too many in all of our opinions, but lower from last year by about 700 animals. So 700 animals progress, but still not a number that we want to sustain. We want to see euthanasia continue to decline. And just to focus on euthanasia a little bit over the years, if you take a look at two things here, the intake, which is the number at the very top of those bar charts, and the euthanasia rate. And so when I looked at euthanasia for the last fiscal year, it only went down by less than 700. That's a huge challenge. I remember someone from the public asked at the last meeting, how are you going to sustain progress when your numbers are not, they're not dropping? But we have a challenge that's hurting the efforts, and that's an increase in owner surrenders. With the additional increase, we were still able to get euthanasia down. If you look back at fiscal 2011, we had roughly, or fiscal 12, roughly the same intake and a significant difference in euthanasia, 8,000, 7,000, and similar intakes, 5,000. So that is an improvement. Again, all the work that we're focused on this next fiscal year and all the coming years will be on driving that number down, but really also trying to do the best that we can do. It's not just about euthanasia, it's about the health and welfare of the animals in our care, and it's also about having a presence in the community, working with the city, working with partners, working with just New York City residents to know who we are, the services that are available, what we do, and hopefully get that conversation going so people start to think about ACC as a place for adoptions and a place for other services.
And we're seeing the intake rate in this current year also increase over last year, correct?
Correct. So in the last 2 months, we can talk a little bit about.
So that the members of the public that are here, we have to take every animal that comes to us. That's the law, that's our job. We need the partnerships and the policies and the change in our way we're living in this city to get people taking some steps. I mean, it looks almost like 2013 was an exceptionally low year, but if we're still seeing increases, this is a problem that we're just on the front lines here. So I know you're doing a lot of things to address it. You're going to talk about that. So we can't do everything in terms of addressing this intake.
And we'll talk about that. Okay, so we think of 2015, we think of, let's look at the past year, not just 1 year ago, but look back 5 years ago and understand what are the challenges and how do we go beyond the status quo and overcome challenges. So to understand that, you have to understand what we do. And so we exist to accept every animal in New York City that's abandoned, homeless, surrendered. We're turning no one away. That is what's driving 30,000 animals. Once they're with us, it's our obligation to provide compassion and respect to animals, but also to people in need who come to us. We want to do right by the New York City community and the animals that are with us. We are driving optimal placement opportunities for our animals, and we really are focusing on building a community that supports us, that's involved, that wants to help get animals adopted. And we're really pushing with social media. We have a couple of things going. Of course, everyone recognizes adopt, don't shop. That's so important. There's so many great animals to adopt, not just from us, but throughout New York City. But get the message out through social media so people are reminded when they're ready to adopt, ACC will be at the front of their mind. And another promotion about Be the Link. You may not be able to adopt, but you could tell a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend. We all know the power of social media. And so just by spreading the message that we're here, we have animals for adoption, you could be the link to getting an animal out of the shelter. It's both. We're going to talk about the intake through the admissions department. Well, the population, dogs versus cats, it's usually about 18,000 cats and 12,000 dogs. But cats are always higher. And also, it's not, I would say, it's not necessarily owner-surrender cats. We have cats nursing queens with their litters that are found astray, so that's not necessarily owner surrender, and that's the challenge of kitten season, which we'll get to. So your question was timely because right now we're in kitten season. It started, I would say, in April. We did this very big promotion. I don't know if you can read it, but it said this summer, Animal Care Control New York City will take in enough cats to fill every seat in Radio City Music Hall. And that's not an exaggeration. Just yesterday, by 4 o'clock, we had 95 cats that had come in already. Since the last board meeting, the last board meeting was 2 months ago, we've had 4,000 cats. We have about 2,000 cats every month coming into ACC. It's a tremendous challenge that the inflow, what we want is the public to understand the inflow. So we have been working with lots of media outlets to highlight the challenges of intake versus outcome. Of course, we want to adopt down every cat that comes into us. But on the weekend that we first ran this promotion, our goal was to get 100 cats adopted for the weekend. And on Saturday alone, 95 came in. So we're on this treadmill and we have to get off of it. One of the things that we're doing, not only to raise awareness in the community, is looking for partners. We were talking to the ASPCA since January. I know I spoke about this at the last board meeting, and since that time, the ASPCA has opened up a kitten nursery that's specifically dedicated to ACC for our kittens. They've taken in 149 queens and kittens in July. They will house those kittens, take care of them, and when they're ready for adoption, get them out. What ACC does is all those kittens first come to ACC. We take them in right away. They get a medical exam, and then we don't even put them in the entire shelter. We squirrel them away. We keep them safe, we keep them warm, we keep them comfortable, and right away they're taken that same day to the kitten nursery. So right now we're waiting for the ASPCA to have additional room, but again, it's a start, and it will be a great help for our challenge, because next year we'll have it operate for more than just a couple of months. As I said, the challenge just continues. As we do all of these promotions and we work with other partners to get more cats placed, we have about 95 to 100 coming in every day. We have to educate the community about surrendering cats. I have at the bottom here the milk crate cat situation. It was in the news, there was a lot of coverage about it. Someone had brought a shopping cart of 24 cats in milk crates, all taped up, just in a shopping cart, dumped right in front of our shelter in Brooklyn. It's horrible for the animals, it's horrible for the shelter. It's just that's not how we want New York City to treat its animals. So there's a lot of education that needs to go on in the community. Another challenge that we have, of course, is pit bulls. They are the most surrendered dog. They are the hardest to place. We have bans of weight, not just in NYCHA. There are private apartment buildings in New York City also that are not taking animals over 25, 30 pounds. And they have a reputation that we have to fight. And again, it's about raising awareness. It's about educating the public. For example, we have Jackie Robinson. Jackie was a dog that wandered onto the Jackie Robinson Highway and stopped traffic. The helicopter for PIX 11 happened to be doing a traffic report and saw it. And they called the police brought her in to us. Then they called us and said, how is she? Did she get a home? Did you find her owner? She was stray, no tags, nothing. Clearly had had puppies in the recent past. And they said, we want to help. We brought Jackie onto their set. We were on their morning show. We were on their website. There were some other media outlets that picked up the Jackie Robinson story. And it took a long time to get her adopted. She finally got adopted, but it informs us, like, this is a hard group. No matter what the attention is, this is going to be a hard sell. The Huffington Post did a feature on pit bulls. We had a fundraiser called the Pit Bowl. It was only about pit bulls, and if you see on the bottom, there's our mobile adoption center parked in front of Lucky Strike. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Again, it was to raise awareness. We had 3 great ambassadors for pit bulls at that fundraiser. They were just terrific. Lots of attention, lots of media, lots of photos. We just want people to see these dogs, as pets, as companions. We've done promotions and adoptions. We did the Pit Bull Prom. We had great photos, and again, we did a lot of media outreach just to get attention. Hey, come and see what we have. These are great dogs. And one of the partnerships that came out of our fundraiser at the Pit Bull is with BarkBox, which is they're starting to do a lot of advertising in the subways, on TV. They provide boxes of treats and toys on a monthly basis to adopt to the public, but we're working with them on a promotion for a bark box every month or as a gift for adopting a pit bull. And they have what's called the Pit Bull Appreciation Society. So we're going to work with them in marketing the pit bull. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our senior manager of shelter operations, Aurora Piacentino. One of the reasons for looking at challenges and looking at data and trying to come up with better ways to do things is we do not want to stay in status quo. So because of that intake, because of the owner surrenders that you pointed out, Elaine, we have created a new department called admissions, and I'm going to let Aurora speak to it because she's in charge of that program.
So as Risa said, July 1 we launched the admissions department, breaking away that intake processing function from our general customer care department. Customer care obviously still exists. We still have customers that need general customer service. So they're primarily focused right now on greeting and directing our customers, helping them figure out what services ACC provides and which ones are relevant to them. As well as things like lost and found walkthroughs, helping people with tips on how to find their lost pets, processing animals that are going back to their owners, as well as holding follow-up for those animals that come in with tags or microchips, and we want to see if we can find their owners. So separate from that now is our admissions department. And admissions is really focused on that one task of animals coming in. And I sort of think of it as 3 primary functions that they have. One is the straightforward admissions procedures. And what's unique about this, or what's different about this, is it's a much more personalized, private interaction than our customers were having before. As you all know, previously you come into the shelters, and in that main lobby area you have people surrendering, NYPD with strays, people reclaiming. So a lot going on at once, which can be overwhelming for people who are doing this pretty private interaction, having to have conversations about their lives and their pets and their experiences in this room full of people. So one thing that we did was create separate offices in Brooklyn and Manhattan. So now when people are coming in to relinquish animals, they're actually taken to a completely separate area where there's that one-on-one. There's a counselor, there's a customer, there's an animal, and they're just having a conversation. And we found that people are much more comfortable in that environment, and we're getting a lot more quality information. So this is, we still see some of this, but this is what our intake information was previously. There was a sheet that people would be provided with a list of questions applied to both owner surrenders as well as strays, but basically they were filling out a form and selecting the appropriate answers based on a couple of pre-designated answers that we gave them. So, you know, where did this animal come from? Is there a microchip? And this is just part of it. There's a whole series of questions. So we're getting good information, but somewhat limited because they're selecting the answers that we've given them. Now with this interaction that we're having, we're getting this, and I realize this is a little bit hard to read, but we're getting full narratives where the admissions counselor is documenting everything from how long the animal's been in that home, what kind of a home it was, who this animal has been around. I was looking at this earlier just to refresh my memory, and I laughed because in this slide that's in the back, it says, Martin is used to clumping litter in an uncovered litter box. That's really, really specific information. That, you know, perhaps Martin is very particular, and if he's in a different kind of litter box with different litter, you know, that may pose a problem for him. So we're getting really good information that is not only going to help us care for the animals better in the shelter, better evaluate their behavior, because our behavior team is looking at this, but better direct placement efforts. You know, we know what kind of a home Martin needs. We know what kind of a home Max has come from and what he's used to. So by getting all of this, we really have a better picture of who these animals are and what they need.
That's a lot of information. It's great information. You say, how does it become at the adoption side? Or how does like this detail about the word design? Is there a grievance given to the adoption family?
Yeah, when they're going through the adoption process, our adoption counselors are privy to all of this information, so they're having that conversation, giving them all of the details. This, I believe at this point, is also printed, so you have your kennel card, and you have this little bio as well, so as people are just kind of walking around, that information is right there for them to read. And this is also showing up wherever our animals appear online, and they have all of that, you know, medical information, intake information, this is there as well. The second part of the program is surrender prevention. So what we have for a long time is a partnership with Pet Health Partners. And Pet Health Partners is an amazing organization that really has done a lot in terms of preventing animals from coming into ACC. But when it comes down to it, it's one program with one phone line that one person answers and one budget. So there's only so much that they can do. So what we've done is diversified who our partners are, so that way everybody can do a little bit, and hopefully we can help more people as a result. So our partnership with Pet Health Partners has really been refined to cover a few key areas, and that's part of they've done a new strategizing thing with their program, and it just complemented what we were doing. So they're really focused right now on NYCHA issues, particularly the dog bans, tenant-landlord disputes, Division of Homeless Services, so folks that are going into shelters and want to be able to keep their pets with them, and cat behavior intervention. We've developed a new partnership with the ASPCA through a couple of their departments, one being their spay-neuter appointments, which they obviously have had throughout the 5 boroughs for a long time, but if anybody's familiar with the program, how it works is people show up as early as 4 or 5 a.m. to wait on a line, hoping that they get into these clinics. ACC Admissions has a direct number where we can call and schedule appointments for those folks. So we're eliminating that barrier of, you know, I have to take my kids to school, I can't wait online for 5 hours and maybe not get in. So that's something that they were able to provide for us. Through their cruelty intervention advocacy program, we have the Partners in Caring grants, which we've actually been able to secure for a number of our clients. And what the Partners in Caring grants are grants that are made directly to pet owners that help them provide emergency medical care for their animals. So, you know, in the summertime, we see lots of high-rise cats, or, you know, a dog gets away from the owner, gets hit by a car. Most of our customers can't really afford the high price of veterinary costs in New York City. So through this program, they're able to get those funds, pay for the medical care of their animal, and keep their animal. So ACNC is not having to absorb those animals. We're not having to call our partners for emergency medical care and transfer those animals out. So that's been great. And then they also have street teams that are working in targeted neighborhoods. 2 of their targeted neighborhoods happen to be where our Brooklyn and Manhattan shelters are. And so if we know that we have a high-risk client, you know, someone's dog has come in 3 times in the past couple of years, we can say, hey, we have this client, can you go out and talk to them? And they can go and they can offer services like fences and training and different equipment to help ensure that that animal stays in the home. And then we also have partnerships with private veterinarians to provide low-cost vet care, dog trainers, and the ability to provide some equipment if it's something that's simple.
With this initiative, this new partnership is fantastic. A lot of these partnerships that are pre-existing, you're working to maximize them, make sure they're being utilized, people are ready. How many of these are new and brand new like first? Are these new resources or is it more?
Some of them are new, some of them are existing. So Pet Health Partners is existing. The ASPCA obviously is an existing partner, but we never really worked with the partners in caring grants before. The spay-neuter arrangement is new. Some of the veterinary partners are brand new. So a fair bit of business development just for this program. And then just as an example, we are keeping track of, so we have people coming in, we're offering them services, they're not leaving their pets with us. But we want to keep track of that because we want to make sure that we have a way to measure how many animals we're keeping in the home, and that way if that long-term doesn't work out and the animal comes back, we know what we've done already to try and help this person. So these are just some examples of different documentation that we've done. So we have, the top one is tenant-landlord dispute, where the landlord, woman had a dog for a couple of years, the landlord came and said, oh, you gotta get rid of your dog. We were able to refer that to Pet Health Partners, and she still has her dog. Dog did not come into ACC. The second one is a woman who found a stray kitten, was going to bring it in. Of course, her kids are now completely in love with this kitten, and we were able to provide her with services for the spay-neuter, some tips on just how to acclimate kittens and kids and all of that. And she went and got that kitten spayed that Thursday, and that kitten is still in her home versus ACC. And then the last one was a medical case where we had one of those partners in caring grants. 3-year-old cat, she didn't really know what was going on with the cat, stopped eating, excessive shedding. We were able to get that PIC grant. The animal was able to get care, and the animal stayed in the home. So, and we have lots of, it's not just the Pomeranian, it's the adult cat, it's the pit bull. It's the ones that we have challenges placing because we have so many of them. So we're really hoping that this will help that intake issue. And then the last issue, or the last component, is sort of a novel idea, I think. Deferred and diverted intakes. And what a deferred intake is, so you have those people that come to us, they do need to surrender their pet. They have a legitimate issue, none of our resources can help them keep them, but they're willing to keep the animal for a little bit longer. So what we're going to do is document all the information, take a really good photo. They're going to take their animal back, and while that animal is still in the home, we can be doing our placement efforts. So let's say the animal is scheduled to come back in a week and a half. That animal already has placement with a partner, or that animal has an adopter that is well suited, and that way we can minimize the time that that animal is in the shelter and help keep population down, help keep stress for that animal down. And the other important thing to note is that first visit, when we're arranging all of this, the animal is going to be vaccinated and microchipped, so that way when they do come back, that immunity has been able to build. And if something happens where the animal then shows up as a stray, that microchip is there and we know who it traces to. And hopefully that people having the knowledge that there is identification on the animal will prevent abandonment generally.
That's something we're proposing to them that they already.
Yes. And then the diverted intakes sort of works tandem with that. Diverted intakes is really just matching up animals that, again, are going to be surrendered directly with our partner organizations. We know that we have certain partners that are interested in, every example of this kind of animal. We have a group that takes every copper spaniel, or a group that we know loves an older orange tabby cat. And so we've been talking to the groups, and they're telling us, if you get this kind of animal, let us know. And those people come in with those animals, We're going to have a list of groups that we can refer them to, and they can do that interaction directly, taking ACNC out as the middleman. Because in many of those cases, we really are just the middleman. And so again, that will save ACNC resources because those aren't going to be animals that are then in our care center that need care and, you know, staff time, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to keep our population density down, which obviously is good for stress and disease, and hopefully will reduce overall intake as this gets going. And we rolled this out to the partners at a meeting a month and a half, 2 months ago. And it's a very new idea, so there were lots of questions, but I think we've had a pretty good showing so far, groups that are interested in participating. And I think as we refine it and it comes down to more of a science, more groups will be interested. Because it's just really easy.
So we're still in the phase of rollout, or is that actually happening?
For this part, diverted, we are still in the phase of rollout. We're still gathering those lists of names, partner names, and then we'll have our materials created, defers. We're already ready to go. I would say within the next couple of weeks, we should have all of that secured. And then, of course, when we conceptualize this, we wanted to have goals because we want to be able to measure, is this an effective department? Do we need to change things? So our goals for 2014, the calendar year, was modest. So 150 animals prevented from entering ACNC through surrender prevention, and another 150 through diverted intakes. The goals for next year we bumped up because we're, anticipating building this team and becoming better and better. So 200 versus 300. And again, so keeping in mind that we started in July. Since July, we've actually been able to keep 190 animals in the home through surrender prevention. So we're being 2 months in now, going on the 3rd month. We've already surpassed our goal for the year.
So we're raising next year's goal?
We are going to raise next year's goal. I haven't looked at that yet. But for this year's goal, we've bumped it up to 350.
I would encourage you is, I think we did raise it pretty high.
Yeah, and I think based on the positive response, we weren't sure the response that we were going to see from the community, but people seem pretty open to it, and I think the combination of that private conversation and ability to be open and honest and having a variety of resources versus one resource that is stretched for time and resources themselves, people have really responded. So yeah, this year we're going to look at 350 kept in the home, and then certainly next year we're going to look at that as well. Looking ahead, so one other exciting thing that we've decided to do is that admissions is also going to be taking our intake photos. This is something that our medical department previously did. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the photos and photo boxes. But we're trying to improve upon that a little bit. And what we've done is we've had our staff trained in the HeartSpeak techniques, which HeartSpeak came a while back and worked with our volunteers and some of our staff to take more professional style photos, as well as another program called One Picture Saves a Life, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with that book, Underwater Dogs. Is a professional photographer who's very passionate about animals. There you go. And so he's started this whole training program to show animal shelter staff how to take a quick but really high quality photo. So we've had our staff trained in a variety of techniques. And so knowing what the photo box booths photos used to look like, these are some of the actual intake photos that our staff have taken as they practice. And you can see they're really cute.
Are we using Instagram for these photos too? We get on Instagram.
So the goal is going to and so the goal is going to be that once all the kinks are worked out, we're looking at some IT things to that admissions will be doing the photos for as many of the animals as they can, safely of course, and that between their photos and our volunteer photographers taking photos of the ones who aren't able to get these photos, that ideally, you know, the vast majority of our population are going to have these really great photos that obviously will do tremendous things in terms of adoptions and promotions, and just ACC in general. So that's really exciting.
Before you get into adoptions, just one more thing about the admissions program. It sounds like you're going to have a lot of detailed data a year from now about why people are surrendering their animals, and maybe despite the intakes that we're seeing, which is really troubling, hoping that we can use that data to address some of the more systematic problems with community surrender we talked about earlier. We'll have the data that really tools more strategically to deal with those things.
Yeah, we're keeping stats in a couple of different ways. We have straight numbers, you know, X number of animals surrendered and prevented, or X number diverted, and then we're able to pull out those memos that I showed you earlier that we'll be able to analyze and figure out, you know, this percentage is surrendered because of this, and you know, versus this, and then we can divert resources to
It's good
address
with
those.
data, but also great photos and really important stories, ways to be helped, and ways to bring help, which I think will also help make this issue of surrender more common. Our board is policy makers, clients, and enterprise. Here's awesome, thank you. It's hard, really detailed, almost to the level of social work that you're doing in your department. It's really impressive. I think it's going to be a good thank you.
Okay, so moving on to adoptions in our placement department. We know in the past year, our process has improved vastly. These are just photos of great happy tales that adopters have sent in to us. There are just too many to even post here, but from the letters that we get from adopters, we know that there are a lot of things about the program that have made a difference to make these adoptions thrive, grow, and have a good experience, which is really important when you want the community to look at ACC as a place to adopt. So for fiscal 15, we've gotten, I think, quality under control. We know what to do. We must focus on quantity. I mentioned earlier that our total was up by about 800 for the fiscal year. We still have the calendar year data. I'll report at the end of the year how we did in the calendar year, but we really want to increase that number by at least 1,000. And it's going to require a lot of analysis to know what else we can do better so that the number of adoptions grows. Where right now, last time I spoke, we talked about focus groups of interviews that were conducted throughout New York City of various people who had adopted, not necessarily from ACC, but throughout New York City. And from that, we have put together with a consultant a large-scale comprehensive survey. We want to identify consumer preference. We want to take the information from that survey and craft a strategy. How are we going to brand and market ACC? How do we drive foot traffic to our locations? All of this is geared toward features of the program that we can introduce to increase our adoptions. Of course, we have promotions all the time. This is just July through September, and September is only 4 days old. We have lots of promotions. The cat promotion that I had shown earlier is still running, and we have special prices for cats are $5, kittens are $25. So just whatever we can do to just raise awareness and get the message out and appeal to dogs, cats, people who just want to donate. We have something coming up, actually a couple of things coming up this weekend. One is the Dandies to the Rescue event. It's a partnership with someone who wrote a book, and in the book there are well-dressed men featured with really great-looking dogs, and so we'll have our mobile adoption vehicle there. And the person who wrote the book will be signing the book, and so will the photographer. But we also have features that go on inside the shelter as well. Driving Adoptions was our mobile adoption center that arrived in February, and since February we have done 32 events with it. It drove adoptions up by almost 200 more animals. What we have to do is focus on that vehicle. How can we maximize its potential? And ironically, it was donated, half of it was donated by Fenwick Keats Real Estate. Really, it's all about location, location, location. It has to be in a spot that people are coming to, that they're going to see on a regular basis. And we spent a lot of time, because there was so much interest and so much excitement about the vehicle, people calling us up, I want to be a partner, I want to have your vehicle in front of our store. And so we did that, because we want to raise awareness, we want to build partnerships. But now we have to say, okay, what works? Let's look at the events that we were at. Where did we drive the most traffic? Where did we do the most adoptions? What's successful? And so we're going to be a little bit more selective. Of course, we're not going to turn people away, but we're going to build on our brand and situate the mobile adoption center in places that we know are going to be successful. Another great addition to the mobile adoption center is MAC number 2. State Senator Jeffrey Klein committed funding for the purchase of a second vehicle. It will be dedicated to the Bronx. You will not see it anywhere else except the Bronx. There was a recent, he had a press release about it, and I'll show you some slides in more detail in a moment. And then also we realized, well, he's a state senator, so I think his pocket might be deeper, I really don't know. But Yonatan and I had met with him. We met with him, I think in February, and we were just talking about the Bronx and animals in the Bronx and what could he do to help his district. And a few weeks later, he called us and said, we want you to apply for this grant. And the grant is worth $250,000. So it covers not only another vehicle, and we're working as a team internally to decide, do you want it just like that? Do you want it bigger? What are the features that we want? And also, it will cover staffing, and it will also cover fuel. So it's a terrific grant. And then what we realize also is for the events on the Mobile Adoption Center, we like to have our animals in foster first, so that they recover from surgery. The animals on the Mobile Adoption Center are pre-altered, so they recover from surgery. They have time to rest and acclimate, and then they go from foster right onto the mobile adoption event, and then hopefully into a loving home. And so, with that in mind, we turn to the foster program.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, this one state senator and
So Albany was working on its budget, and in the budget, it's coming out of Albany, there was a pocket of money that he, for his district,
I mean, to be clear, we asked for a lot more than that.
Of course we did.
Something and we got a van, which is great.
It's also because they are not full service shelter there. So he was getting questions kind of over and over. But when you get a full service shelter, obviously $250,000 investment is a lot.
And I do with that small, but still it's a significant.
Oh, yeah.
here's our mobile adoption center team. Wheels are turning already right now. Okay, so foster also, really important to grow the foster program, and we've had a lot of success. Right now we have almost 300 active fosters, and if you look at the numbers for June, July, and August, there's a lot of animals in foster care. There's a lot of success with animals going from foster into adoptions to events, for media events, and through the mobile adoption center. And we realize that the more animals we can put in foster, it's going to help the population that's currently in the shelter. It's going to make these animals really shine for adoptions, and it will help grow adoptions. The strategy to continue this growth is that we're growing the department. We're adding 2 new positions. One is a foster off-site adoption liaison, and the focus is going to be on the mobile adoption center, and also a foster assistant, because it's a big program. It's really essential. Now we'll have coverage 7 days a week. Previously, and a big shout out to Sonia, who's our foster coordinator, and now she's supervisor. It was just her and a couple of volunteers from AmeriCorps or CityCorps. So this is great. This is really going to help make the program expand. We're also taking our orientations outside of ACC's headquarters and looking for places in all of the boroughs so that it's more convenient for potential foster volunteers. And also coming this fall, we're working on on-site orientations at companies. I know that we spoke time about his law firm doing one on-site there. We're looking at community groups, wherever we can sort of hit the road and do the training and just drive the number of fosters. And then, of course, the goal is really to increase animals available for adoption, and specifically for the mobile adoption center, because now we're going to have 2 of them. It's also going to help us manage the population in the shelter, and again, just increase adoptions overall. Okay, field, and I realize that we really don't talk much about the call center, but it has to start somewhere. And I wanted to give you an idea of what's going on in there. So there's a little bit about fiscal 2014 because we haven't talked about the call center. To give you a snapshot, in that year alone, we took in over 130,000 phone calls. That's about 370 a day. And those calls are received through an IVR, which is a voice recognition system, and a call center staff of 10. And so while there might be complaints, I don't like the IVR, and you have to listen for all those prompts, it actually is really successful. It takes sometimes over 70% of the calls can be handled through an IVR. While people may complain, 135,000 calls or 300 calls a day is a huge number, so we had to figure out a way to respond to all of those inquiries. So from the call center, then we have our field operations team who gets dispatched, and so they were dispatched and responded to over 16,000 calls. And of that number, almost 6,000 of them were transports. And so we are a very active partner with New Hope. We're doing transports for them. We transport animals for fosters to and from the foster homes, to events, and of course, for medical reasons, throughout New York City and to and from within the ACC care centers. So for fiscal 2012, already we've gotten over 12,000 phone calls just in July. So it's not going to stop. And field has already been dispatched to 974 of those calls. Of that number, 524 were for transport. Just of note, we had in just July 4 cat hoarding cases that our field officers were dispatched to. It involved 49 cats. I think there were 2 cases in the Bronx and 2 in Brooklyn. The role of field continues to expand. So cruelty is playing a big role. We are working daily with NYPD as well as the ASPCA. We also, our field, through that call center, our field receive complaints from third parties. Something doesn't look right. We'll send a team out to investigate if there is cruelty here. Sometimes it's just a concerned neighbor or resident. And it's an opportunity for ACC to educate not only the person who has that animal, connect them with resources, offer some services, but also to educate the public, educate the caller, that what you think might be cruelty, it's not cruelty, and this is what we did. So there's follow-up with the people who call as well. We've had at least 15 new cruelty cases that we've been working on with PD since June, and 90% of those cases are dogs. We provide housing and care for these cruelty cases. So we have one dog who's available for adoption now who came in as a cruelty case in May. So we are holding on to these dogs and cats and working with PD and the DA's office. And then the ASPCA certainly is involved, and they will take custody of animals that we receive that have really severe injury, medical issues, any kind of illness. And then just some, sort of happy stories about what our drivers also get to do. They get to rescue. They get to get in the field and work with the community. On the top right were 2 fawns that were found in Staten Island. Some residents had corralled them with a makeshift fence, and then we transported them to a safer area. We get lots of calls for, in the first slide I showed you, there were others, so a bearded dragon would fall under one of those others. This little guy was found in Little Neck, Queens, in someone's backyard. We were also involved in rescuing a 60-pound tortoise from an apartment in the Bronx, completely abandoned. And on the bottom left, when I say rescue, I mean it. This was a kitten that was trapped at the bottom of a 5-foot pole, 5-foot pipe, and residents had heard her purring, and our rescue workers came out and were able to save her. So we're still, just like with Field, we're trying to expand our community of supporters and our network and who we are, and so we're always looking for opportunities in the field to educate people. We're using social media to grow that community of supporters and grow the community of who we are. We're not asking for anything more than just share our story, like us on Facebook. We're up 112% in likes on Facebook since the beginning of fiscal 14. That's great, it's not enough. We should be at 111,000. We should be growing and growing and growing. And so I hope at the end of next fiscal year, that number will be 10 times greater. And again, it's really just about building the community, more shares equal more adoptions. The bottom right, you'll see be the link. You may not want to adopt, you may not want to give us money, but you could ask somebody, hey, if you're looking to adopt a pet, this is a great place. And again, the power of social media just can take off, and it could really, really help us. We are always looking for ways to expand our coverage on positive stories. Of course, the news loves to report tragedies and sad stories, but there's a lot of great stuff there too, and there's a lot of media outlets that are promoting awareness for shelter animals. The top right, there was media coverage, although that's a picture from the launch in Manhattan, but CBS covered Senator Klein's announcement about the new vehicle for the Bronx, and you can see various media outlets really stepping in to highlight homeless animals, National Dog Day, lots of animals, 4 dogs in East New York. We had 4 large dogs that came to the Brooklyn shelter, and News 12 took an interest in that. And it's good, it showcases not only the work we do, but the type of animals that we have available for adoption. In development, we are building a community of givers, and that can be in any way. We have Wish List Wednesday. Every Wednesday we have something posted through social media and on our website asking for something else, and we will take photos and we'll post it, and we've been really overwhelmed with how generous the community has been. This is just a small snapshot of what we received each of the weeks that we had a specific ask. Sometimes it's just so much stuff, we can't take a picture of all of it. So it's been great. It's been great enrichment for our animals. And yesterday we did, Wish List Wednesday was for Karanda vets, and I know we got at least one, but we won't know until they start to come in. Karanda vets, which are the dog vets that short little, it's about this high off the ground, and we give all our dogs a bed to lie in.
Any progress on the fundraising for our medical needs?
That's a good question. I'll get to it in a moment. We continue to build the community of givers. Again, here are promotions that we have going on. Just in September, we have 3 things. You can just show up. It's about awareness. Adoptapalooza is coming up this Sunday. It's at Union Square. There'll be lots of other organizations there, but we'll be there at that adoption event with our mobile adoption center. Struck United, it's sort of like a walk-a-thon. You take your own dog and just raise money for ACC. We had the pit bowl, which I I referenced earlier. Again, showcasing pit bulls. It was really awareness, education, having 3 amazing ambassadors for the pit bull to just show people that they're great pets. And you can see some of the photos on top and below of one of our spokesmodels. We grossed over $8,000. This was a small event that our creative services coordinator just said, hey, I'm thinking, I know someone at Lucky Strikes, and she pulled this off. We thought it would just raise a couple of $1,000s, and we grossed over $8,000, which shows you a lot of people got on ACC. There was a whole group of people who came to this that were not on our regular donor list or guest list to various events. There was a lot of new interest. And so she seized on something, and we're going to continue to focus on this group and how we did something with such a small budget and really did quite well. And also it just brought out Lucky Strikes as a partner and BarkBox. And the money also is dedicated to purchase an awning, which you can see in the bottom right slide. That awning provides shade for our dogs in the backyard in Brooklyn. So while they're out there during their enrichment, especially in these hot summer days, it's much cooler, much more comfortable, not only for staff, but certainly for the dogs. We are doing a lot of partnerships with the city. You asked about the X-ray machine. We received an $85,000 grant from Gail Brewer's office. We pursued it. We were very diligent. Ashley, who's in our development office, she's so quiet, and she came to my office and she said, look at this letter. And so you just have to focus on the right ask and just continue to pursue different partners in the city. And we were really thrilled. This is her first term as Manhattan Borough President, and she stepped up and supported us. So we're going to start the process of looking for the right piece of equipment and ordering that. I mentioned Senator Klein's $250,000 grant. We also have received discretionary funding grants. Each city council member has some discretionary funds, and they can allocate to different organizations, and we applied to a whole bunch of them. And this is just the first group that have come in. So it's about $13,000, $14,000. We also want to partner with New York's Kindness, and so we have a whole bunch of giving campaigns. And again, these are just since July 1. So this is a lot of success and progress and development in just a very short amount of time. Already our New York's Kindness campaign has netted $11,000. Another one in July and August, and that's actually a direct mail campaign. We have 6 new ones that are going to pop up throughout until the end of the year, and then through next fiscal year. We also I don't have the number in hand, but we did at least $250,000 better than we had budgeted for in development. In addition, there was an additional amount in there because of the vehicle, which was over $120,000. Money in our pocket, correct? Yes. We will continue with the New York's Kindness monthly giving program. We've already had 147 new monthly donors sign up. And just since July 1, we've received over $68,000 through these various programs. And of course, we get unsolicited donations in the mail. We'll get a check from someone who may have said, I saw your ad, or I adopted, or so those are always nice to receive because they usually come with a very nice letter. And then just to conclude, we can't succeed without volunteers. I mean, obviously there's a lot of work that goes into caring for so many animals, but we could never have enough volunteers. They are awesome. This great photo, this is such a great photo, really, I think epitomizes what it is to be a volunteer. It's just all about love, and that dog looks so happy. I won't call him out, but that person is sitting in that audience, so I thank him very much for being such a great supporter and for attending today. We have had in fiscal 2014 over 26,000 hours of volunteer time. We have 75 volunteers who have over 250 hours That's a long-term commitment, and they're just fabulous. And then, just to give you an idea of what those hours mean, we pared it down, obviously. Manhattan has the most number of volunteers, but Brooklyn has 6,000, Staten Island 2,000. We're continuing to grow the program. We have 2 volunteer liaisons right now. So we can't do it, we can't do any of this without support from at every level. And so hopefully these slides reflect that. And I just want to say how grateful we are to everybody who has worked so hard in this past fiscal year to help us achieve what we've achieved, and to also just keep your eye on the future, that we're going to just get better and better and just not accept status quo. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Lisa Levin, who's our medical director.
Good morning. I was in the Manhattan shelter this week doing some disease surveillance, helping to train one of the new veterinarians who just came on staff and performing some surgeries. And while I was there, I visited the lab. Walked in and I said, "What's new in the world of rabbits?" And I looked at them and they looked at me, and it was again one of those moments when I'm reminded that they, as well as the other animals in the shelter system, are my most critical audience. They, more than any individual or group of individuals, let me know how well the medical department is performing. And I continue to evaluate the information that they give me, which then allows me to chart a course of forward progress for veterinary medical care at ACC. And that's one of our beautiful little clinics there. We certainly see injury and cruelty and neglect. But our animals are also confronted with monsters of serious illness who are entering our shelters, and it's the duty of the medical department to chase those intruders away. So what we do is identify the pathogens or these infectious agents. We study the incidence, what animals newly acquired each year in a particular lesson, the prevalence, what portion of the animals right now have that given illness, and we follow the trend tendencies. And with this information, ACC gathers the force to be able to repel these diseases from the shelters. We've selected a known group of some very bad actors. 2 of them are cursing us right now, particularly in the shelter system. Parvovirus in dogs, where we're not seeing that so much, but we do see that occasionally, but it's a bad one. Panleukopenia, which is the feline cousin of parvovirus in cats. Kennel cough, upper respiratory infection, ringworm. And we look at information that's from our care centers as well as from our medical records to generate answers to our questions about disease in the shelter system. Well, we've learned that upper respiratory infection and kennel cough will decrease with improved cleaning protocols and when the medical department is able to provide timely vaccinations to the orphans we care for. However, we've noticed that the clinical presentation of kennel cough in the shelter setting can oftentimes present at the very severe end of the continuum for disease presentation. And I think Dr. Coleman in private practice would agree with me that in the private sector, it's usually one pathogen, one infectious agent, maybe another, and it's pretty easily treated. But in the shelter setting, we have multiple pathogens layering on each other. And then it's a very sinister character that this kennel cough, or more appropriate name is the canine infectious respiratory disease complex, takes on. For sure, we have influenza in the shelter. I'm going to talk about that momentarily. Mycoplasma, I know last two respiratory coronavirus and respiratory pneumovirus. Sadly, I'm confident that those are present as well. The group on the line with CNEX with the Bordetella, the adenovirus 2, parainfluenza in distemper, those are infectious agents that we vaccinate against. But sometimes the burden of contagion that's brought into the shelter is just so large, no matter how well we clean, it's getting puffed out into the air. And the vaccines, the initial vaccines may not be strong enough to overcome them. So we're going to look at this continuum here of how the canine infectious respiratory disease complex, we call it kennel cough, that's a lot easier, presents. We have the treatable form. Animal gets sick, coughs, we put him or her on an antibiotic, it goes away. We have the second form where initially it's treatable, then they reverse their course, it becomes unresponsive, we switch to another antibiotic, and phew, it's treatable. The third one's the real bad one. Absolutely unresponsive to any treatment attempt that we make. It progresses to pneumonia. Sometimes it's hemorrhagic, examples are coughing blood, and I don't want to go through the rest of the descriptors for this, but those ones are very difficult to overcome the disease. Today is a new and a very important day for dogs in animal care and control. This morning marks the addition of the canine influenza vaccine to our existing protocols for dog vaccines. We already administered the DA2PP, and you may remember from the previous page, the D is the distemper, A2 is the adenovirus 2, and P is parainfluenza. These are common respiratory pathogens, and in this DA2PP vaccine, we couple it with the last P, which stands for parvovirus, which is primarily a gastrointestinal disease. Bordetella, more frequently in anybody's imagination, or what they hear commonly, is linked with kennel cough than any of the other pathogens. Rabies is fatal, and for those of you following the news, you know Brooklyn has had great problems with rabies, and it's something that we must confront. So today, we bring out the monster killer, I hope, which is the canine influenza vaccine. All dogs and puppies 6 weeks of age and older are going to get their first vaccination intake. Should they still be with us in 2 weeks' time and not have been adopted out, or some other form of placement, they're going to receive a booster. For those animals going out to placement, the rescue or the adopters will be advised that they require a booster to really let this thing kick in. It is what's called a killed vaccine. There are vaccines that are killed, like the rabies and the canine influenza, and there are vaccines like the DA2PP, which are known as modified live vaccines. And these all have to do with the way the vaccine is prepared. We want to have modified live vaccines in the shelter. They work much more quickly. We can't make rabies a modified live vaccine because that would kill an animal. We can't make the canine influenza vaccine live, one, because that will also have the same sort of problem. And there is a natural history of the canine influenza virus. It has changed. The influenza viruses in general tend to be champions at mutating. So a recent study I read about 2 weekends ago, a group pulled out the 1965 model and looked at that, and it was kind of bad. And then they pulled out the 2003 version, which was what I think most of us would be familiar with when we're talking about canine influenza. That was when it struck the racing greyhounds in Florida, and that was also really bad. The very scary one is the present incarnation, because it's what's called a chimera. A chimera is a mythical figure made up of a whole bunch of different body components. In this case, the present canine influenza vaccine is made up of equine influenza, from where it originally derived, because that mutated into canine influenza. It's also made up of its own component of canine influenza. And it's got human influenza in there as well. So we're not only looking at this in terms of containing the disease in the shelter, we're also having a public health interest in using this vaccine as well. I really have always disliked television programs that end with "to be continued." Nonetheless, I've chosen the title for the next two slides because I prefer to change the definition from that cliffhanger sort of feeling to showing that ACC Medical does want to continue with forward progress on a path toward excellent animal health outcomes. Medical, as I've said in the past, overlaps very closely with operations department, and that's so that we can optimize animal health and comfort while they're in the shelter. Within medical, we have a continued emphasis on prompt initial evaluation, what I and another shelter vet like to call that golden hour, when they come back from the front, that they're seeing, the physical exam, their vaccines, and any other necessary treatment they require. And again, with operations, we continue to raise the bar for standards of cleanliness and identification of what diseases we have in the shelter. All of this combines together to reduce euthanasia. I said at the last board meeting that the position of medical director is a wonderful hybrid position. It allows me to visit the shelters as both a veterinarian and an administrator. I certainly make my own rounds. I visit with veterinarians and the veterinary support staff to discuss medical challenges. I meet with the medical supervisors and the medical clerks to talk primarily about programmatic challenges. I interact with the newly created position of the quality assurance, quality control licensed veterinary technician who assists me with deciding how to strengthen the core of licensed veterinary technicians that we do have. And of course, I continue to speak with my colleagues in operations about how we're both faring in our duties to humane and responsible animal care. My primary site for brainstorming on my own with senior management is at headquarters. I meet with the executive director and our operations director as part of a senior level team, which really is geared toward moving animal welfare forward at ACC. I'm almost finished. Just 2 days ago, we had an in-house morbidity and mortality conference to discuss present challenges to disease prevention and eradication in the shelter. And while I work with a calculator to make our dollars dance for optimal veterinary care, I also think quite a bit about program development. What's new? Well, certainly the DOH, our partners, are concerned about rabies and distemper and how many animals in general in New York City are unprotected against some very serious diseases. And starting September 14th and running for a few days through October, the DOH is going to sponsor free rabies and distemper vaccination clinics in each of the boroughs. If you're out in Brooklyn on the 14th, I'll be participating in that one. Be happy to speak with you and visit for a while. We had a recent meeting with our new partners to hear their concerns. We discussed some common ones and decided how we can better work together on medical issues. Lisa mentioned that lovely grant that we got from the Manhattan Borough President's Office. We're also in some negotiations for additional digital x-ray equipment, and what I hope are going to be perhaps some other alternates like educational funding grants for our veterinarians and support staff. The ASPCA has a kitten nursery, as Lisa mentioned, and that's for the bottle babies and the other population she spoke about, but they were also very generous in underwriting the cost of this year's canine influenza vaccine supply. I that's going to help a lot. ACC Medical, like all other departments in the organization, is making great steps toward improving animal welfare. And we're all working toward that time when that rabbit in the background of the slide and the cat in the foreground, as well as all the others who stay with us, will remember ACC as having been safe, comfortable, and healing temporary.
Well, we usually start with do, we don't know whether someone's going to be waiting.
We started a little bit late, we had a lot to go through, and it was really, really good information. So I hope we can get to everyone's comments. Just reminding though everyone, this is a board meeting, so the board business comes first. So let's try and get it done. Joan Salaco?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We're watching the clock. My name is Joan Salaco. I used to work at Animal Care Control from kennel person to management, so I know how procedures are done. First, I have a comment before my question. If your board members get paid to come here, I don't. But if I can find the time and energy to come here, I find it insulting
No,
when they can
we
do
don't
the
get
same.
it. First of all, we don't, so.
I just had to put that out there. Now,
What's
my
your question?
Regarding euthanasia of animals, I want to know the procedure as of now to euthanize dogs, cats, puppies, and kittens. Because I heard stories that you had a vet that was euthanizing every animal through the heart, not the paw and the vein. I know that's not normal procedure. So I'd like to know what's your procedure as far as euthanizing animals right now.
That's not our procedure, so.
Well, obviously,
Yeah.
but you had a vet that was his normal procedure, euthanizing every animal through the heart and not the paw and the vein. So I'd like to know, maybe from Lisa Levin, your vet person.
Yeah, just also, in case you didn't hear me, since my microphone was off, but there is no one on this board that is paid to be here. This is all volunteer work.
Well, then they
So-
should be on the board if they don't show up, because I mean, we're here, we don't get paid. We haven't-
Nor do I. Are you hearing me? I don't either.
Well, I'm only saying that because the other one said about board members that don't show up. They should be on the board then, I'm sorry.
Joan, I want to focus on what you asked. It's certainly a concerning question to you, as obviously must be to others. No one at ACC, no veterinarian or euthanized or certified euthanasia technician is euthanizing an animal by intracardiac administration. The only time, according to the statutes in New York State, where intracardiac administration of euthanasia solution is acceptable is when an animal is either comatose, heavily sedated, or anesthetized. There is a provision that an animal may be administered euthanasia solution by that route, by a veterinarian, if without being in those states, but that has to be something unusual, and that has never been tested. No one would do that. It's a very painful way to die. Presently, there are two modes of euthanasia at ACC. It's directly injecting an overdose of a type of medication called a barbiturate. It's an anesthetic. And the animal's brain stops, and then their heart stops, and the death comes very quickly. If an animal is a bit fractious or we're scared, we're anxious, if we can't manage to calm that animal by holding them and talking to them, whatever that animal recognizes a comforting maneuver, then we sedate the animal. And then when the animal is calm, then we'll proceed with the intravenous procedure. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Irina Dorochenko. Okay, so the question was just answered. We aren't doing that. The word on the street,
I have film footage that proves it, that you had a vet that hit a shepherd in the heart 5 times. That is not normal procedure. I've done euthanasia with the doctor. Clean up the rats.
please send us the video, please send it to us. Thank you. It's not anything that should be happening.
Exactly.
It's very clear.
So how do you are as public and make sure?
I think I just addressed that question. Thanks. Caitlin St. George.
Yes, it's been answered. That's just why it's
I'll talk to you afterwards too.
Hi, my name's Caitlin, I'm from Coffee, and I stumbled upon ACC early in January, up in Pride. I saw a sweet little face, the wet white nipple and legs. Looking all handsome, with his green white jet star tied around his neck, I fell in love with him. I clicked on his picture, went to the post of urgent after dogs, and my heart sank. He was on the 2 weeks list. I read his bio, I saw his pictures, I saw his videos, I had to get that dog. There was no possible way I was going to get to the city, so I worked for Second Chance Rescue in Cold Morning. I got happy, I was glad I had something wonderful. I didn't know then, but I quickly learned that there were thousands of dogs just like that, so that's about to be serviced. And they aren't so lucky. I question the randomness of how dogs end up on the destroy list. My understanding is by grant money that ACC receives, you are not to be killing for space or you're not to be killing the healthy animal. And I see dogs countless times end up on the destroy list. Very random. 2 recent cases last month. Gallant, on a DA toll, he was found tied to a radiator in the food and water. When you're on a DA toll, you cannot be given options. The case led to nothing, so he was released. Within days of being released from the DOA toll, he went right to Jesus Streets. Perfectly healthy, adoptable dog. Lucky for him, he was picked up by a rescue. Another dog, not so lucky, was King. About a month ago, one surrendered due to allergies. 8 or 9-year-old pit bull, beautiful, well-behaved, healthy. He was good enough to be one of the worker dogs. That's how well-behaved he was. As soon as he got cut loose for working for ACC, he goes directly to the to-be destroyed list. King was not so lucky, King was killed. I question your randomness, it makes no sense. Obviously, I'm not behind the scenes, but if you are killing for a space, if you're killing healthy dogs, shame on you, and that needs to change. I do have to say myself, as well as other people in the Catholic District, we post the dogs. I have interest as far as Burlington, so when you're casting that and looking at who to adopt the dogs, think broader, because people adopt a dog because they connect with the dog. I connected with Jackson, well, it's not Jackson, what's next?
Okay. Thank you very much for adopting. Thank you for casting a wider net. We really do. We appreciate that. We also appreciate community involvement. When you're talking about the kill list, ACC has a policy and procedure about every animal that's put at risk of euthanasia. You're looking at urgent, which we do not control, which we do not manage. That's a completely separate private citizen who manages her own Facebook network. ACC has an at-risk list of euthanasia. If you go on our website, you can pull up our placement policy, which will walk you through how we make placement decisions. We go through an analysis of every single dog or cat that goes on the list that is at risk of euthanasia. It doesn't mean to be destroyed. It means that this animal is either has a health issue, has some illness, has a behavior issue, has not been adopted, has been sitting in the shelter. There's a combination of things. We're not euthanizing for space. We're looking at their behavior and we're looking at their medical condition. Are some of them treatable illnesses? Yes, they are. They are at risk of euthanasia because they have not been placed and they're getting sicker in the shelter. When we put them on the list, people from the public pull them off. 50% of the animals that were on the at-risk list were pulled. Our goal is to get people to take these animals before they get sick, before their behavior changes because they've been in the shelter for too long. We never take account of cage space and say, no more room, let's put them on the to-be destroyed list. We do not have such a list. You're talking about an organization and a community that is separate and apart from ACC. And we appreciate that so many people find it in their hearts to come and adopt and pull those animals off the list. Work with us. Help us get the community out there to think about adoption before it's at this really tragic point. But we make a very, very careful and committed decision about every animal that goes on that list. It's not random, it's not arbitrary, and we have a lot of policies and procedures in place. So again, thank you very much for adopting and for spreading the word. And I hope that you would look to adopt from ACC again in the future.
Okay, Julia, no, actually we're moving on, we're in a tight schedule, thank you. Julia Mickelson?
I have a very similar question to Dr. Lee. I know that 9 out of 10 girls on the death row or kill list have PC. PC is a treatable illness that would interest from that or institution. How is it that treatable illness is a death penalty in ACC?
More or less.
We just talked about, but do you have anything you want to add to that specific question?
What I was saying, Julia, is that my private practitioner colleagues will agree that out in the private sector, it's usually 1, maybe 2 of these infectious agents that are problematic. In the shelter, in a very contained space, when you have so many pathogens layering on top of each other, it's not so simply treated.
But most of the girls have been on medication for 1 or 2 days.
Right.
They didn't even have a chance to be treated.
Well, no. They may go on the at-risk list when they're on 1 or 2 days, and we're looking for them to get pulled. They're going to be doing better in a less stressful situation. I mean, face it, when you're hospitalized, that
The problem is that you're counting their chances to be pulled. What about if they have odds, then they're not going to be pulled? So putting dogs on the death row with PC, which is a treatable illness, hoping that they get pulled is actually a bad strategy because
Okay.
a lot of them get
Okay,
on average, 13 animals a day die at ACC.
Okay, what I'm trying to make a point about is that continuum of that kennel cough, that canine infectious respiratory disease complex, more than one, it's not just Bordetella. You've got pulmonary Bordetella, they're giving an antibiotic, it's going to get better. We're going to see Bordetella, which is there with mycoplasma, which is there with influenza. We're making a big dent. As I said, I called it what I'm considering a monster killer. It's getting pulled out today. And because it's a killed vaccine, we're all excited, but by the nature of it being a killed vaccine, this may take 6 months, 2 years to burn that ugly thing out of the sheltering system. We want that unwelcome, and that we're trying. So when you have flu, mycoplasma, and you have adenovirus 2 and paraplegia, and Bordetella, even when we're vaccinating on all these things, and you have this huge burden of disease coming in, and layering all on these dogs, that formidable challenge is an understatement.
But are you saying that all the dogs at the death row are only the ones that are unresponsive to treatment? Because
As Lisa said, there's a system that looks at reasons for animals.
It's been explained. We need to move on to sell the pencil. Okay.
Couple of questions actually directed toward the board. I don't know if it's the purview of the board, but we've been talking in many cases about animals having to be put down. One of the factors that we mentioned was how long we've been there. Some of them may be sick or may not be sick. Very often we've heard that animals are taken out, turn out not to be sick at all. Don't you think that the two growers, beans and the Bronx, having populations of the size of large cities, that it would relieve some of the burden from the Brooklyn and Manhattan shelters in particular to have shelters in the Bronx and Queens. I know the DOH is shaking their head again because you proposed and you supported not having the shelters built in the Bronx and Queens. I remember your speech when it was a public hearing. But when you have increase in intake, you have over 30,000 animals coming in. How can you say you don't need more shelters? It's great that you're going to have a van, but that van is not there every day. It's not around all the time.
I'll answer that. We would love more shelters, and we love the resources to staff those shelters. If the city has the political will to implement that,
Where does that come from? Where does the political will come from?
that comes from you, and that comes from the dialogue you have with your politicians. They help us get the money that we would need in order to do something like that. Of course, we need more space. We would love to have it. It's not up to the board.
I understand what you have, don't you have to take, I saw you shaking your head because I think you're not supporting it, but is the board
The board
supportive of
supports
that?
it, you're supportive. The money is there, and we'll help find it, and we've been trying to do that, and that's what led to the mobile adoption vehicle for the Bronx. As they may have heard me say, we asked for a lot more than that. We realize that we need more capacity. It's a matter of finding the money to get it.
And now that, this is for the non-governmental ACC directors, now that given your experience working with the DOH and a new state law statutorily naming the DOH in charge of animal welfare, you believe that the DOH is a solid partner committed to animal welfare?
Yes, I do. And on that note too, I'm going to apologize, there's about 3 people who didn't get to speak, exactly 3 people. And we'll make sure you're prioritized the next time, or also please, you can always contact us with your questions or comments. But there are board members that need to leave, including our veterinarian, who has a lot of important appointments waiting for him.
Sir, I'm a volunteer. I volunteer at the Brooklyn Shelter. I should have a minute to talk what I need to say about the Brooklyn Shelter.
You guys are the problem.
Miss, I'm not. No, listen, I just say, 1 second. I volunteer at the Brooklyn Shelter. I put in hours every single week, and I wanted to voice my opinion about what goes on at the Brooklyn Shelter. All right? There's problems at the Brooklyn Shelter. The Brooklyn Shelter is depressing. It's sick. It's like, you don't understand how bad it is at the Brooklyn Shelter. All right? Volunteers are just depressed. We're worn out. All right? There needs to be an addressed issue at the Brooklyn Shelter. You guys just have no clue what goes on there. There's cages that are filthy, dirty, and I see staff that just walk past them. You see the filthy cage, they say, oh well, whatever, you know? And I come in there at 8 a.m., and they're filthy, they're dirty. Why don't you have enough staff overnight to keep those things clean?
We only have 2 shelters in College, and we have volunteer liaison in Brooklyn and a management supervisor, and I think at that level, let's address it at that
I've been
level.
interested. I've been doing shelter staff that it's like, you know, a disaster there.
If you only have 2 shelters, how
You don't care to talk! Stop! 1 second!
people say next door?
You spoke
Alright.
like
Can you guys keep yourself?
No. It's just like there's a major issue at the Brooklyn Shelter. And you guys don't get it. You see like there's no volunteers there. Because it's depressing. You guys need to do renovations. You guys have to address the Brooklyn Shelter. There's a major problem there. There's massive kennels that are just dirty and disgusting all the time. You guys just don't give 2 shits whatsoever.
You had a dog with a prolapsed uterus sitting in the Brooklyn shelter for 5 days without treatment, with her uterus hanging out of her. That's what I want to say. I saw it on Instagram in the past 5 days. 5 days for her to get treatment. It's not fair you didn't let us speak. It's not fair you didn't let us speak. It was 2 minutes each. It was 2 minutes each. I traveled from Bayside, Queens to come here on my own time and took off from work. And you didn't let us speak. It's not right. It's not right. I try to support you guys. It's not right.
Either.
Someone has a sick sense of
I did.